Welcome back. Eric Arnold here in the tertiary studio. It's too cold tonight to be out in the barn. So here we are, a wee hours of the morning on the 22nd of Monday, January. Well, what's on the plate for tonight or this morning? Ron DeSantis drops out. New Hampshire primary tomorrow, Tuesday. That could very likely settle the GOP nomination once and for all. Nikki Haley, where does she go from here? What's her future? She has some fundraising coming up, which I saw an article in The Hill, which that's a online publication. I think I don't know what it's tied in with. I'm not sure. I can't remember. But The Hill, at any rate, there it is again. Oh, and this is the second take, too. And the last time I said that, it threw me all off because it's been pointed out to me, and I say that all the time. And I'm trying to cut back on, at any rate, and I keep saying it. The person that pointed this out to me, the Flamingo Kid, has apparently made a video, which he wanted to show it to me, but he just wanted to show it to me at a time I wasn't prepared to watch it. So I said, I want to see it. I'll look at it at some point if it will still allow me to see it. They say, the computer here says Oscar Wilde, I think that was an Irish poet or writer, said that imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. So I'll look at it. His imitation tape of me. I wonder how many times I say at any rate in his tape. So let's try to cut back on that. Where was I? We're talking about the Hill. Nikki Haley is going to try to raise some money from Wall Street billionaires. And I want to talk about that because I don't want to just necessarily slam every last billionaire on Wall Street, but I do want to mention some of these people just to give us an idea who these people are. And not every last billionaire on Wall Street is in the pockets of the Democrats. Most of them are. Most of the oligarchs in this country are in the pockets of the Marxists. There's probably some, though, that are still, whatever you want to say, old school capitalists, corporate raiders, whatever, that they have donated to Republican candidates in the past. Now, frankly, those are probably people named Chris Christie and Rudy Giuliani and Mitt Romney and John McCain and that wing of the party. But I think we need to talk about that because they're an important piece going forward to Donald Trump winning the White House. DeSantis, he dropped out today. Good. You know, he I think preserves a future in politics for himself. 4 years is a long time. 27, he's out of office in Florida. Does he start running for the White House in the 28 race? Who knows? I think it is going to take that many years, though, for the Republican Party, for the Republican voters to view him as a viable candidate. And that's the kind of damage that Donald Trump generally does to a Republican challenger. Ted Cruz, for example, he may lose his seat in the Senate this cycle because of all the damage inflicted on him by Donald Trump when he ran for president in 2016. The damage that Trump did to him may never go away. So Trump smashes up Republican challengers much worse than anyone that takes him on in the Democrat Party. But that's just how he rolls. So DeSantis doing right by the party. He's a good company man. He's out endorsing Trump. So now it's down to Trump and Haley. Now, the polls for Tuesday's the New Hampshire primary, and I just had them. Where are they? Trump is exceeding my expectations. Frankly, I think he's probably exceeding everyone's expectations at this point. I thought Haley might challenge him because New Hampshire is a bluish state, favoring her kind of brand of politics. Well, Trump is just boat racing her. Let's see. These are the polls that have come out since the Iowa caucuses just less than a week ago. Let's see. Boston Globe, Trump 52, Haley 35. CNN, Trump 50, Haley 39. WHDH TV, I guess that's a New Hampshire station. Trump 53, Haley 37. And then here's one done by the Insider Advantage, which they slapped together in the last 16 hours. It's like, can you do a poll that fast? I guess you can do anything that fast if you really have a mind to. Capturing the numbers after DeSantis dropped out. Trump 62, Haley 35. Wow. So this is in a Haley favorable state, and she's looking at not being able to break 40%. That is a wipeout. That is a complete and utter repudiation of never Trump, if you will. Remember the number from the Iowa caucuses that 43% of Haley voters said they would vote for Biden if it ends up being Biden versus Trump. So that wing of the party, they're barely Republicans. And probably if they don't get their way, a good chunk of them are going to defect to the Democrats. So what do? Do we give in to them and vote for Nikki Haley and cave into that wing of the party? I don't think it really matters because she's simply not going to be able to corral enough votes anywhere. If she's losing 62 to 35 in New Hampshire, you're looking at 70-80% when you get to states like South Carolina and Texas and Florida. Trump is just going to wipe the floor with her. Pennsylvania, he's very popular here amongst the Republicans in Pennsylvania. So it looks like to me it's over. That Trump has knocked Nikki Haley out. Now, these are polls, and polls are not official, obviously. So Tuesday we'll find out for sure if Haley has any tricks in her bag at all. She should drop out. Let's say that number holds up, 62-35, she should drop out. Just drop out. Endorse Trump. Let's unite the clans, and let's take on Joe Biden together. He is the real enemy. Let's do that. We'll see what she does. Now, here's the item in The Hill that I wanted to talk a bit about here. This is dated today, or yesterday, Sunday afternoon. Wall Street billionaires plan Haley fundraiser after New Hampshire. And it says, and I believe this is originally being reported by Bloomberg News, and The Hill is just parroting what was in Bloomberg. A group of Wall Street billionaires is planning a fundraiser for GOP presidential candidate Nikki Haley in New York City after the New Hampshire primary, Bloomberg News reported. Billionaires Stanley Druckenmiller, Henry Kravis, Ken Langone, and Cliff Asness are reportedly planning a fundraiser for Haley on January 30th, according to an invitation viewed by Bloomberg. A donor, speaking on the condition of anonymity, told the outlet that the event is just one part of a fundraising swing slated for Haley in between the New Hampshire and South Carolina primaries. I believe South Carolina is sometime in February. I think it might be like the middle of February. So there might be about 3 weeks between New Hampshire and South Carolina. And I guess she's thinking, well, South Carolina is my home state, even though the polls there show her probably even further behind than she is in New Hampshire. But, you know, I guess she's thinking she's going to raise all this money with the help of these billionaires. And I don't know what she expects to do with it. I mean, I think she could have $1 trillion, and it's not going to help her win the Republican primary in the year 2024. It's just not happening. Who are these people, though? I mean, I looked these people up because, you know, this is the part that we need. It's so easy for MAGA voters, for Trump people to just go, screw them. We don't need any of those people. They're evil. We just screw them. It's like those people have in the past voted Republican. More importantly, their money has voted Republican. A lot of these people, their Wikipedia pages say that they donated significant amounts of cash to Republican candidates. Now, almost all these Republican candidates were not named Donald Trump. We're talking Mitt Romney, John McCain, the Bushes. One of them, I think, I was able to find a good bit here on the fellow named Henry Kravis. Who is Henry Kravis? Well, he's a hedge fund, private equity. I believe that's the term he prefers. Corporate raider, I believe, would be a more effective term that's perhaps more descriptive. I'm not even sure if we use that term anymore. You young people, you may have never even seen the movie Wall Street from the 80s, which featured the iconic character Gordon Gekko, played by Michael Douglas, and the aspiring, up-and-coming, I'll do anything to get ahead young broker Charlie Sheen. It was a great movie. I think it did spurn a sequel some years later. Henry Kravis probably fits very closely to the Gekko character. Maybe not entirely, but there is a movie out there that a lot of you older people may have seen called Barbarians at the Gate. I think it was originally done by HBO. It's on YouTube right now. In fact, I'm going to put that in the link. You can watch it. It's for free. James Garner. I guess it's the same guy. Remember him? The Rockford Files? Well, he plays the president of RJR Nabisco. This is a true story where in the late 80s, RJR Nabisco, maker of Camel cigarettes and Oreo cookies, is a publicly traded company. And these guys, I guess, get the bright idea that they want to buy out the company. So that leads to a feeding frenzy of banks and corporate raiders that have contacts at banks that are raising all this money, other people's money. It's all borrowed. None of these guys have the money to buy out a company like that by themselves. They need the banks. So Henry Kravis is a corporate raider, but he's able to borrow huge sums of money. So this turns into a bidding war for RJR Nabisco, and ultimately Kravis wins the company with a huge bid of borrowed money and takes the company private. In other words, the shareholders are bought off with a giant bag of borrowed money, and then he owns the company. Well, he and the banks that he borrowed zillions from to control the company. Now, the movie and the book, it's, I guess, a first a book and then a movie. The movie doesn't talk about what happens after Kravis obtains control of the company. Now you can guess. Now I did find another article that talks about Kravis and his buyout prowess, and it does talk about one major company he bought out before RGR Nabisco, and I want to share a little of that with you. It's called Safeway. You ever heard of Safeway? Safeway was a major grocery chain in the 70s and 80s, and then it mostly just went away. I think it used to have some stores in the Washington, D.C. area. Now I'm not sure it has any stores at all. According to the internet, apparently it's merged with Albertsons, and the Safeway brand, I think, is mostly extinct. But at any rate, there it is again. Did it again. In the 70s and 80s, it was a major supermarket chain, much like, say, Kroger's. And I don't think the company was near bankruptcy at all. I think it was just a stodgy, we're making some money, but not a lot of money, and type of company. Well, it ended up in the crosshairs of these corporate raiders. So in a buyout battle, Kravis wins and buys out the Safeway stock. Somewhere, looks like for just, it's somewhere in this huge article, and I'm not going to be able to find it, but it looks like probably around $60, $70 a share is what he bought it out for. But then it talks about what happened after that. So to get the money to take that company private, borrows huge sums of debt. So now Safeway owes all this money to all these banks, and I guess when you borrow that kind of money, the banks are saying to themselves, man, this is a lot of debt you've got here. We want to be paid fast because we don't trust you entirely, because that's a lot of money to pay back. And if this doesn't go the way you think it's going to go, you can just declare bankruptcy and we're on the hook for all this. You know, you're going to sink, your ship is going to sink, and in the whirlpool created by you sinking, you're going to drag us down with you. So we want to get paid back fast on our terms, which are undoubtedly not that favorable to Safeway. Well, how do you do that? How do you raise that kind of money after you just took on that huge amount of debt? Well, you fire everybody. That's what you do, and that's basically what Kravis did. Let's see. Employees, on the other hand, have considerably less reason to celebrate. Mr. McGowan's toast notwithstanding. Who's Mr. McGowan? McGowan was the son of the founder, who was the president of Safeway in 1986 when they were bought out by Kravis. McGowan also then went on after the Safeway was, I guess, resold by Kravis in the early 90s. McGowan then, with his giant bag of money, went on with a bunch of other investors to buy the San Francisco Giants, bringing in Barry Bonds, which McGowan undoubtedly knew that he was on steroids, but it made him more money, so what does he care? So that's who McGowan is. So McGowan here, he's happy because he wanted Kravis to win over the other bunch that was bidding to try to buy out Safeway. I'm not sure why he wanted Kravis over the other bunch, but he did, so he's happy. McGowan's toast notwithstanding, 63,000 managers and workers were cut loose from Safeway through store sales or layoffs, while the majority were reemployed by their new store owners. This was largely at lower wages, and many thousands of Safeway people wound up either unemployed or forced into the part-time workforce. A survey of former Safeway employees in Dallas found that nearly 60% still hadn't found full-time employment more than a year after the layoff. Now, what am I reading? I'm reading an article that appeared in the 1990 Wall Street Journal, written by a woman named Susan Faludi. Now, apparently this piece won an award. Let's see, it won an award for 1991 Pulitzer Prize for Explanatory Journalism. So I'm going to put a link to this here. You can read this at your leisure as well. James White, a Safeway trucker, for nearly 30 years in Dallas, was among the 60%. In 1988, he marked the one-year anniversary of his last shift at Safeway this way. He told his wife he loved her, then he locked the bathroom door, loaded his .22 caliber hunting rifle, and blew his brains out. Safeway was James' whole life, says his widow Helen. He'd near stand up and salute whenever one of them trucks went by. When Safeway dismissed him, she said, it was like he turned into a piece of stone. It's a pretty long piece. Before the LBO, Safeway was hardly a prime example of the sluggish, out-of-shape sort of company that LBO, that stands for Leveraged Buyouts, proponents like to target. Founded in 1926, it had grown under McGowan family leadership to encompass more than 2,000 stores in 29 states and in England, Australia, Canada, and New Mexico, or Mexico. Mr. McGowan's father, Robert, had largely built Safeway, and his mother, Doris Merrill McGowan, is the daughter of a founder of Merrill Lynch, which helped finance Safeway's growth. So there you see Safeway has its fingers over there at Merrill Lynch as well. Many companies, including Safeway, had allowed their payrolls to become bloated in certain unperforming divisions, and layoffs were common throughout large American companies during the last decade. But Safeway is already doing, albeit at a slower pace, many of the things LBO experts advocate. It was remodeling its stores and creating the upscale superstores that have now proved to be such a big success. It was experimenting with employee productivity teams, phasing out money-losing divisions, and thinning its workforce with a program that included some layoffs, but generally relied on less painful methods like attrition. All these changes produced earnings that more than doubled in the first 4 years of the 1980s to a record $231 million in 1985. The stock price tripled in 3 years, and dividends climbed 4 years in a row. But all that wasn't enough for the takeover-crazed Wall Street, where virtually no company was invulnerable to catch rich But all that wasn't enough for takeover-crazed Wall Street, where virtually no company was invulnerable to cash-rich corporate raiders. When the deep-pocketed Hafts, Herbert Haft, that was the other team that was bidding on Safeway, began buying Safeway shares in the open market and then offered to buy the company for as much as $64 a share, management felt it had to take defensive action. Selling to the Hafts might have cost Chairman McGowan his job, couldn't have that, and he felt ultimately might have brought a breakup of the company. Safeway considered and rejected a plan to fend off the Hafts through a so-called recapitalization. This was a move that its supermarket industry competitor Kroger would use 2 years later to keep the same raiders at bay while allowing shareholders to realize a big one-time gain. The decision to sell to KKR, that's Kravis, instead brought immediate benefits to some. Shareholders got 67.50 cents a share, 82% more than the stock was trading at 3 months before, so that means the stock probably was down in the 40s, plus warrants that gave them a 5.6% stake in the outgoing company. employees owned roughly 10% of Safeway shares at the time of the buyout. McGowan got 28 million. Yeah, And it talks about all the outrageous money that KKR made by flipping the company, by buying the company, firing everybody, and then taking it public again. And they made a mint. When they did take the company public again, remember they bought it for $60. What was it, $67.50 a share? When they brought it public again, the only thing people would buy it for was $11.25 a share. So that's how much they had shrunk the company as far as value went, where it was worth $67.50 a share. Now it's only worth $11.25. Well, that's how you generate that huge amount of money to pay back the banks. Now, remember, a lot of that money then went into Henry Kravis's pocket, him and his partners and what have you. The point is of all this that we need these people, unfortunately, because Donald Trump does not have a lot of money to run for office. He just, the Democrats brag that they have $1 billion war chest. $1 billion buys a lot of votes. It buys a lot of votes. And Donald Trump has no way of combating that. He doesn't have a lot of deep-pocketed friends. These guys have deep pockets. They're no friends of Donald Trump. So, but we need money from somewhere. I don't have $1 billion. I'm going to vote for Donald Trump. I'll make these videos trying to sell you Donald Trump. I don't have $1 billion. And honestly, if I did have $1 billion, I doubt I'd be giving it to Donald Trump. The money's got to come from somewhere. So somehow, Donald Trump has to make a deal with these corporate raiders that are on Wall Street, guys that are not in the pockets of the Obamas. Most of the Wall Street money is in the pockets of the Obamas. There's not a lot of guys out there with this kind of scratch that are even willing to talk to Donald Trump and the MAGA crew. So, where do you go? That's one of the reasons why I'm not that optimistic about Trump's chances of winning the election. Oh yeah, it looks great right now. The polls show he's winning and Joe Biden can't string 3 sentences together. The Democrats haven't even begun to fight. They haven't even begun to advertise or open up their chest of money. When they do that, it's going to be awful hard to fight back if you're not able to get on TV. I told you people again and again during the 20 cycle here in the key state of Pennsylvania, Biden commercials dwarfed Trump commercials 10-1. 10-1. And if you don't think that's significant, then you don't know anything about politics. Biden won, and the fact that he buried Trump on the airwaves, that was significant. That was definitely part of why Trump lost. So I don't know. I mean, Nikki Haley maybe could help, perhaps, trying to convince some of these people to come on over to Trump with their bags of money. I don't know how that works, frankly. If she raises tens of millions of dollars here in the next 3 weeks, and she doesn't spend it all, could she transfer it to the Trump campaign? Or is that not the way that works? I don't know what magic words he's going to have to say to these guys. I mean, certainly these people are going to want something. I think you're going to have to give it to them. You got to compromise here. We need that money. So, before we just dismiss, what's sad is a lot of these type of people have already said, no, I'm never voting for Trump. They're never Trump. Mitt Romney, he was a corporate raider, so he speaks these guys' language, and he's already said he's voting for Biden. So that's not encouraging at all. Let's talk about something that is encouraging. The lawfare case in Atlanta, the head prosecutor down there. I don't know if I want to. I haven't followed this case that closely just because it's not time to really pay attention to it yet. Fani Willis, I believe, is the head district attorney in that county that's bringing these ridiculous lawfare charges. Well, she's in trouble of her own now because she has hired one of the lead prosecutors that's helping her. I guess you need multiple attorneys to try a case like this, of course. Well, probably the main guy she hired's her lover. I guess that's a problem. I have no idea what the legality of that is. These are lawyers, right? So they're supposed to be super ethical. They have ethics, which no other profession in the world has ethics, right? You know, plumbers, they're not ethical. You know, it's like, well, actually, plumbers are pretty ethical. In fact, if you asked your general man in the street, who's more ethical, a plumber or a lawyer? I guarantee you're going to get more answers that say the plumber's more ethical than the lawyer. I guess that's why lawyers drained that up. It's like, everybody thinks we're crooks. What do we do here? I know. We'll make us have an ethics clause in our little license. So it'll be some little badge that we'll wear. Now, we're not going to follow any of that stuff, but it's just some subterfuge that we can try to foist onto the moronic public where they think we're ethical. You know, now I'm sure some lawyers are very ethical, and then some aren't, just like any other profession. I just think it's a joke that they run around carrying this badge saying, I have ethics. If I don't follow these ethics, I get disbarred. It's like, oh, okay, right. You're telling me that you've got lawyers there that are unethical and have not been disbarred. Bullshit. I know you got unethical lawyers that are operating just free and clear. You know, no trouble with the Bar Association for those guys. So, yeah, and then there it is again. God damn. All right. She's in trouble. Now, why she's really in trouble is, as I've said again and again and again, these trials have nothing to do with the law. Nothing. I think that's where the Democrats maybe are making a mistake. The Democrats have the majority of the lawyers in the country are Democrats. So, big party of lawyers. That's the Democrats. So they actually believe in this nonsense that, well, if we dream up some charges and get a conviction, that will carry some weight. Not if the people don't think it's fair, not if the people don't believe it. So that's where this is a political trial, not a legal trial. It's Trump's challenge to make the people see that this is crap, this is total bullshit. These charges have never been brought before. They would never have been brought if he wasn't running for president. And they're simply trying to steal the 2024 election. That's his challenge, to make people see that. I think he will be able to do that for the most part, especially seeing what Fani Willis has gotten herself into already. She issued, I don't know, a statement at her church. At her church? I guess that's just how churches are all different, right? I once went to a Quaker church ceremony, which was interesting. They sit in a room, mostly in a square, just facing each other, and they just stare at each other till somebody thinks they've got something to say. And then that guy gets up and he says what he has to say, and he sits down. Then they'll stare at each other for some more. then someone else will get up and they'll say their piece about whatever they're feeling that day. I guess usually it's has to do with God. In other words, I don't think that somebody stands up and says, I've been thinking that if I used whole tomatoes instead of crushed tomatoes, I think my chili recipe would come out a little better than it has been. It's been a little watery, so I'm thinking of trying that. I don't think they do that. I think that's something to do with their relationship with God. And then that goes on until one of the elders finally, has had enough or wants to go home and watch a football game or whatever. And then he stands up and shakes hands with the guy next to him, and then everybody does that, and it's over. It's an undetermined length of time that service could go on. I've always remembered that. It's like, wow, this is interesting. Well, my uncle was a Quaker. I think my uncle was everything at one time or another. He was a kind of he dabbled in a number of religions. But Fani Willis, I guess, at her church, stands up and talks to the congregation. And she's talking about, the trouble she's in with, I guess, the voters of Fulton County and the disciplinary board or whatever. And I'm thinking, wow, my church isn't like that. And let's put it this way. What she said before the congregation, Donald Trump wants her to talk as much as possible at this trial. She's a thinly disguised racist. And she will win this case for Donald Trump easily the more she speaks. Now, here's where I'm not sure where we're at with this. It sounds like she's in so much trouble that she may be removed from the case altogether, which would be bad for Trump because they might put somebody competent in charge or maybe put her in a corner where she's still able to direct and control things. She just doesn't speak and they never see her. We want her front and center because she is not going to win any hearts and minds based on what she told that congregation. Well, she just blamed everybody but herself. She blamed, of course, Whitey. The race card came right on out. It's like, wait a minute. I mean, what's that have to do with the price of petunias? The white man didn't make you hire your lover against all ethical guidelines that attorneys are supposed to follow. Apparently, it's not like he was qualified. He's never handled any kind of a corruption case or something like that. So there was no basis whatsoever to hire this guy other than she was banging him. So that's all. This is all good for Trump. All good. Like I said, if she's removed from the case and they're able to slap a competent Marxist in there that is able to mask their Marxism a little better, that's bad for Trump. So I'm not really spiking the football yet. I don't know exactly how this is going to play out. But at the moment, it appears like it's something good for Trump. If nothing else, that she's shown herself to be unable to hide her biases or biases. So anytime she speaks during the trial, she's just going to turn the normal voter off. Those people, those independents in the middle, or those mushy Republicans, or perhaps even Democrats. She's just going to turn those people off. The only people cheering for her is going to be the choir over at MSNBC. So this is all good for Trump. What else? I think that's about it here. So we'll leave it here. Predictions on the Tuesday primary. We'll say Trump over 50. I think that's a pretty conservative prediction at this point. Anything south, well, there's only 2 people left, so he better get over 50. Really, I guess a good night for him now. Perhaps his goalposts have shifted with everybody dropping out. A good night would, I would say, be 57, we'll say 57. That's a pretty low bar. Anything over 60, Haley should drop out immediately. She has no path whatsoever. Just get out. Let's unite the clans, and let's go get Joe Biden. I believe in free speech. I'm Eric Arnold. I'm signing off. We'll talk again.